Hi. In this segment, we're going to be talking about the development of our babies from the earliest part of pregnancy during the first trimester of pregnancy. And we'll look at the development of each sense, each of the five primary senses, their sense of touch, smell, taste, their sense of sight, and their sense of sound. And we'll go on through the birth process. What's that like for the baby? And then we'll move on into newborn development so that we can bridge our understanding from prenatal development to newborn development. So let's begin by understanding as we talk about our moms during pregnancy and talk about prenatal development that I'm drawing largely from the science of the research that we know from anthropology and also much of what I learned when I worked in the newborn intensive care unit, so that we can take that knowledge from the sciences and bring that into our care practices. As we meet our families where they are, our couples are in transition from pregnancy to parenting, and we meet them where they are and help guide them toward the next experience that they're going to have. So we begin with the fetal environment, and we begin with the very first touch, the very first sense that develops, and that's the sense of touch. So at about 8 weeks gestation, and realize that some women don't even know that they're pregnant yet, and their baby's sense of touch is already developing. Those touch receptors are already activating. Key thing to realize here is that the touch receptors are the closest to the brain, because the little fetus is a little tiny thing. Brain is developing, touch receptors are developing, and that's the reason that touch is so important for our newborns and for our babies, is that it is the sense that is the closest in development to the brain. To the developing brain. So the receptors are firing, and then we move into the second trimester of pregnancy. And in the second trimester, the baby's sense of taste and smell are developing concurrently. It's fascinating because what is happening is that baby is inhaling and exhaling mom's amniotic fluid, and baby is taking in a chemical imprint of mom's amniotic fluid. The good news is if the chemical imprint is healthy and nourishing, that's wonderful for baby's brain. If the chemical imprint is altered, if there are substances that are not promoting the baby's brain development, then unfortunately that also affects the baby very much in utero. So when I hear people saying, learning begins at birth, let's all begin raising awareness that learning begins long before birth. And here babies learning what smells and what tastes are safe and are nourishing. We know from the research that the researchers built these fascinating little things for newborns, and have a little contraption that holds their head and keeps them safe. They put cotton balls with mom's amniotic fluid, different mothers, 5 different mothers' amniotic fluid, and that little newborn would turn to his or her own mother's amniotic fluid and start the rooting reflex, which lets the adults know that they're ready to eat. So they would get that impression. And the other fascinating thing from the research that we learned is that mom's amniotic fluid is chemically matched to her breast milk. And same thing, the researchers had the babies in the little contraptions, and they had cotton balls with mom's breast milk, and the babies were able to discern their own mother's breast milk from other mother's breast milk. Now, we know that our formula-fed babies turn out just fine. Babies are incredibly adaptable. The human body is so amazingly adaptable. And it's fascinating to know that even just at the beginning, the second trimester of pregnancy, the babies are already inhaling and exhaling amniotic fluid and developing that sense of taste and touch, taste and smell. And we remember that those receptors are also very, very close to the brain. So they're all over the inside of the mouth, into the trachea, and into the digestive system. The next primary sense to develop is the sense of sound. And now we're beginning into the third trimester. So we're right at about 24 weeks or so gestation for the baby. And their ear architecture is beginning to develop. And the way the ear is structured is that these cells, the long cells in the ear, these long nerve cells, are the ones that activate to low sounds, deep sounds, slow sounds. And these shorter ones are the ones that activate to high-pitched sounds and short sounds, quick sounds. So what we want for our babies is for them to develop the ear architecture that crosses the full spectrum, the full range. We know from the research that babies will turn their heads to their mother's voice. They even can discern their father's voice from another man's voice. So even though the sound is muffled coming through during pregnancy, we know that babies are already attuning to their parent's voice. Then the last sense that we will talk about is the sense of sight, which develops around 25, 28 weeks, somewhere in there of pregnancy. And that is the development of the eye structure, the eye architecture for the infant. And these are the rods and the cones. So our eye architecture is a mix of rods and cones. The rods are the long, slender ones that differentiate light. The cones are the small, denser ones that differentiate dark. And it is crucial that we be able to differentiate light from dark, because that is the beginning of all visual differentiation throughout our lifetime. So we know that before babies are born, they're already able to differentiate light and dark as their eye architecture develops. At the end of the third trimester, we move into labor, and so it's the end. We've got 40 weeks. We have a full pregnancy, and so for the baby, labor is a very different experience. So for moms, I'm going to choose my words very carefully, and I want you to do the same thing when you talk to families. Contractions are uncomfortable for mom, and they become increasingly uncomfortable. The reason for that, there's two reasons. The reason contractions are uncomfortable is so that mom will go to a safe place, and so that she will surround herself with people that she trusts. If contractions were not uncomfortable, then we busy moms would just be cooking and cleaning and going to work and grocery shopping. Then it'd be like, oops, okay, there's the baby. So contractions get our attention, and they cause us to go to a safe place and surround ourselves with people we trust. For the baby, contractions are experienced very differently. So for the baby, the contractions help the baby move down the birth canal and help the baby get ready to take that first breath of room air. So those contractions are actually the baby's first massage. And those last few contractions, as baby's crowning and just about to be born, actually compress the baby's lungs and express that amniotic fluid and help the baby get ready to breathe room air. So then when baby is ready and comes, then we have this interesting thing from anthropology that tells us, like, how is this going to work? So we know our babies are born at 9 months gestation. So 40 weeks. So, but what our anthropologists have taught us is that over the tens of thousands of years, as we migrated farther distances, as we went farther to find food and shelter, our pelvises became more efficient at going long distances. So they became smaller. At the same time, we were having lots of new experiences, so our brains got bigger as we developed our prefrontal cortex, executive function, decision making. So how is that going to work? Pelvises are smaller, babies' brains are bigger. So what the anthropologists have suggested to us in the research is that at 1 minute the baby's cozy, and then the baby moves into the 4th trimester of development. So baby's born, they're here, it's their birthday. However, anthropologists have taught us that babies really need another trimester of development because they're born neurologically unfinished. They're born so that their heads will pass through the birth canal, but they have a soft spot. They have an open fontanelle. So we know that they're really actually not quite ready. So here they are, they're exposed to different sights, different sounds, temperature changes. All these changes come at birth, and all of this informs our care practices. So what we're going to do for care practices with our newborns, with this new awareness that we've just gained, we're going to create much more of a fetal-like environment for our newborns, just as this sweet dad is doing. So he has his baby skin to skin. There's soft lighting. Perhaps he's humming, perhaps he's singing, or just, she's feeling his vibration on his chest. But that's the type of environment that our newborns are going to be welcomed into. And this is what I love so much about LifeWays. about the principles and the practices of Lifeways, because it is a natural home environment, and it helps us, the Waldorf inspired and nature-based and natural environments help us understand the best environment for our newborns. And we want a slow, nurturing transition into the adult environment. I often hear people say, oh, my baby's days and nights are mixed up, when actually during the day when mom is walking, that's rocking the cradle for the baby. So the baby is being rocked to sleep. So the baby will sleep while mom is walking and active and busy. And then when mom lies down to take a break, then baby decides, okay, this is active time. So let's meet our babies where they are, and let's bring them gently, slowly, lovingly into an adult environment. I am so curious about your experience with newborns, your experience with pregnancy, with the various stages of pregnancy, and with newborn development. So please take a moment before you go to the next segment, and in the comments below, offer us a couple of things from your perspective, from your experience, and I'll see you in the next segment. Thank you.